Hi, Misha here, and back in March of 2018, after a number of years of success with the Star Trek official Starships collection, Eaglemoss launched the Battlestar Galactica collection, featuring mostly ships from the Reimagined series, because that's where the most ones are available, and also the ones available from the original series. And eventually they even branched into some from Blood and Chrome. They said they would do 12 or 13 issues for sure. And recently they announced the end of the series once issue 25 is released in March of 2022. So more or less 4 years right after the series was launched. So we have 25 standard edition of diecast models. We also have 3 special editions that aren't numbered. Well, they're numbered 1, 2, 3 in the specials. You know what I mean. And we have a couple of manuals, catalogs, the shipyard type things. I can't remember if they just did 1 or 2. So I'm going to do a 3-part kind of look back and just discussion about this, because why not? It seems like a good time for a Cylon Christmas. And in part 1, we are going to talk about the Cylon ships and Cylons, because this is now complete. We are at issue 22 released right now. Issue 23 and 24 are both colonial. One from Reimagined, one from the original series. And issue 25 is actually a civilian ship, a prisoner ship, the Astral Queen. Either way, all human, so no more Cylon ships. In part 2, I'll look at the Battlestars and the Vipers, and then in part 3 will kind of be the odds and ends, like, Colonial 1, the Land Ram, things like that. Not a whole lot new here, I'm sure, but it's fun to talk about and just kind of give my impressions, pros, and cons, because it's been a pretty darn good series. The releases have been kind of unusual. Sometimes they'll clump 2 or even 3 really close together, and then we'll go for 4 months or even more without a single one. That's just how overseas productions are. They're not a regular release type thing. But 2019 and 2020 were especially active years. They actually launched the series with more or less 3 at once. Technically, the Viper Mark II is first, but the Cylon Raider and the Reimagined Battlestar Galactica pretty much came out at the same time, barring pre-release. So, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's have some fun. Get some popcorn. Why not? In a row here we have all 3 Raiders. This is from the original series, this is from Blood and Chrome, and this is from the Reimagined. Like I said, this actually came out very early in the series, but it's kind of neat to see the progression. This is the original one. And what I always liked about Battlestar Galactica Reimagined, they pretty much used all the original designs. The only real changes they made, they replaced laser guns, plasma guns with kinetic weapons. So this had 2 triple barrel cannon, one on each side. It also was able to carry, I'll set you down here maybe, we'll see how this goes. Was able to carry ordnance under the wings, also potentially in internal bays. In the original series, I'm not sure if these were FTL capable or not. They used tankers to refuel, which is kind of neat. And they had a crew of 3. And this actually continues with the Reimagined series. They have the old style Centurions, a pilot, co-pilot, and commander. And it's an interesting ship, and it's actually not really a fighter. At least it's a lot bigger than the Viper. It's about 40 feet by 50 feet, give or take. And it was designed as a multi-role strike craft, a bomber, long-range, heavy fighter. Had the heavy guns, and because it had a crew of 3, it was maybe a little better at multitasking than a Viper. But Vipers tended to own these, but of course they did, because that's how series works. The good guys, the humans, win. It's worth pointing out that in the original series, the humans were unequivocally the good guys. And they reimagined a little more, But this is a really nice model. It's actually one of the heaviest too, and it's a very good size. This is all metal. The bottom is polymer. And sits in the stand well. It has these little notches and a little kind of thruster it cradles into. In concept, design-wise, this is probably my least favorite. I don't know, it's hard to say. But the actual execution of the model is my favorite. And so we see this in the original series and the war flashbacks. And moving to Blood and Chrome, this is their attempt to kind of bridge the gap. It still has 3 Centurions, as far as we know. There's very little information out there on this type of raider, because we only see it in Blood and Chrome, and since Blood and Chrome wasn't picked up, we just don't know much about it. It still seems to be a multi-role strike craft. It's supposed to be very fast. It has 2 engines in the back. Comparing the models, I like that this actually has more detailing inside the engine. Here has more of a thin wing, so probably doesn't have the internal bays in the wings to carry missiles or bombs, but it probably could still carry underneath. Again, it still has the crew up here. They're known to be fast. They also are supposed to have more advanced targeting systems to make them a better long-range strike craft. And they are FTL capable, possibly the first raiders to have the small, compact FTL drive, because they have a power core, as it were. This is a really neat looking model. Appearance-wise, it's probably my favorite, the concept of the ship. But because it is more detailed, it's lighter. This is all still metal, because it's thinner. It's much lighter. But I'm really happy they did this, because no one else was going to do a Blood and Chrome Raider. And they did it quite early in the collection too. I think it was issue like 11 or something. I think they even did it before the Viper Mark III. And it sits in the stand very well cradled. It's quite interesting. And of course that gets us to issue 2 in the Reimagined Viper. Now I should point out, this has 2 lightweight cannon. I don't know if it uses the 3 barrels or not. I don't think so. So it's kind of transitioning here, where this is going to be more of a space superiority true fighter. And physically, this is a very big model. Kind of like the Colonial Vipers, this has 3 main thrusters instead of 2. And we have 2 large single-barrel cannon here. And supposedly there are 2 more cannon tucked in for a total of 4, at least on some versions. And these do have internal bays in these wings. This is kind of a love it or hate it. I think they were kind of bold with their choice on this. Size-wise, it's actually a little smaller than the original. I mean the in-universe ship, not this model. This model is quite a bit bigger. It's also very heavy too. It's all metal. It's about 29 feet long and about 18.5 feet wide. So pretty much like a pretty small aircraft. Yeah. And it is definitely FTL capable. In fact, it's got a very advanced FTL drive, as we kind of know from the series. And when I got into this series, they'd already released issues 1, 2, and 3, and it was picking this up and the Viper that kind of convinced me I wanted to get it. The Viper was kind of as I expected, but this one was nice. You can tell they knew that people would mostly want the colonial ships, so when they did their first Cylon, they really went above and beyond. It's probably physically the largest one, but I think it's so large because it's so thin they can get away with it. They kind of have a maximum allowance, just like going to the post office or UPS when you ship something. They take all 3 dimensions and they can't exceed a certain size. And because this one's so thin, and it kind of works in the favor of this one too. Pretty darn neat. So this gets us our initial Raider fleet here. And we'll talk about kind of the differences in the Raiders too in a minute. And then we would get some more. As I said in the video when this first came out, I was looking forward to the Cylon Heavy Raider, and I was not disappointed. Now, the original Raider was, again, a multi-role craft. It could work as a missile fighter, a bomber. It was even seen delivering troops or kind of acting as a small shuttle. Again, usually only had a crew of 3, but based on evidence we saw from the original series, it could carry more. One either under the wings, maybe, because they're robots, so, or just cram them in the cockpit. It's not like they have to worry about BO. Although maybe motor oil starts to stink after a while. Not sure. Let me know if you know. But when they went to the new Raider, sometimes called the Sparrow, like I said, this was an air or space superiority fighter. Had limited bombing and missile capability and no ability to really carry anyone. So they went to a heavy Raider. This works as a gunship, attack ship, assault vessel, even a construction and clearance ship. Like the original Raider, it actually has 2 triple barrel cannon in the front. It also has 2 internal recessed missile launchers. Now, like the standard Raider, it is self-piloting, but it can carry up to 10 Centurions and possibly even more humanoid types inside. I don't know exactly how big it is. It's obviously much longer than it is wide, but it is a bigger craft, probably 50, 60 feet. It's got a lot of detailing going on. It's a versatile craft. This is analogous to their Raptor, but the Raptor, it must said, is more versatile. We see it doing more different roles. This one we see mostly in attack, but we do see it used in some command authority and duties, control. But it doesn't have a cockpit with windows, so you have to use the data stream, all that good stuff. But I was really happy when they did that. This is one of the more recent releases in the series, and I think really the last Cylon one we got. It's pretty weighty. It's got a lot of metal in the middle. Of course, all this detailing adds some plastic so you can get it in there. But it was such a prominent vessel in the show that we just really needed to do this. So I'm glad we did get to it. Huzzah. And I'm, again, not at all disappointed. What do you think? Maybe I just like support craft. It sits in its stand pretty well. It has kind of a belly cradle that it rocks into here a little bit, kind of dips down. Kind of nice to get this on a shelf too, because it's pretty low slung. So these have all been hits. And of course now we have to talk about the one potential miss. The Cylon Raider Scar. His first role was actually in The Lion King, and then I guess, he went on from there and got a reoccurring role in Season 1 and Season 2 of Battlestar Galactica. First off, I wasn't super thrilled about this because it's the same ship, just kind of a hero version, or villain version. But I will give them credit. Instead of just weathering it with a decal and paint, they actually did go to a new mold, giving it kind of blistering here, kind of a half bent and broken wing, some damage on the head. So I will give them credit there. And of course, as you know, the original Raiders were piloted. They were just mechanical things by robots. But the newer ones were, cyborgs, biomechanoids. They had brains, they had things. And so Scar was a resurrected one that had become kind of the ace. So at first, this really just doesn't seem bad, but you know where this is going. They made a very major boo-boo. Like I said, the original version here has the 3 thrusters, and for whatever reason, this one does not. It has the center one, and it has the holes for the port and starboard. They're not missing. They're not broken off. Well, they are missing, but everyone's was missing these. I zeroed in on this within 5 minutes of unboxing this. I don't know how this just didn't get caught. It's so obvious. It's the forest for the trees thing, or the Raider for the thrusters. Now, to be fair to them, this came out during the height of COVID in spring, summer of 2020. So you kind of have to give them a little leeway there. But still, for what these cost, that's a big mistake. Now my question to you, and I've looked online and can't find that they have they fixed this? If you were to buy a Scar now, does it have all 3 thrusters, or is it still this way? If you know, please let me know, because it really is a shame. The guns are a little different on this. Yeah, I mean, they definitely went to a new thing. One thing to point out too, see, these guns have a total of 4, like a small one and a big one. The other one over here just has 2 big ones. Now, during the show, they actually revised the CGI model. So I have to wonder if this is kind of a taken from the updated CGI. But it makes sense because there are some small differences. Again, this has 4 smaller guns. The other one has 2 larger cannon. It's just a shame about the engine situation on this guy, because it would otherwise be pretty neat. Also be neat if I could put this on the right way, huh? On camera stuff, guys. I knew when I took it off and flipped things around I'd do this. It just cradles it with the head either there or a little further forward, but holds it pretty good. These do hold the models quite well. It's just a shame that they kind of goofed on that one, but I don't know. We're all human, correct? So those are our major Raiders. We didn't get all that many, but we did get a couple of capital ships too. We received 2 Basestars. The Reimagined and the original. There were more seen in the show. We saw kind of the prototypical Basestar from Razor. We also saw one from Blood and Chrome that was a little different. I kind of hoped we would get those, but I'm not surprised we didn't. People are divided on this Basestar, much as they are about the new Raider. There's a certain amount of nostalgia for the classic one, but let's be honest, it's kind of just two traditional 1950s flying saucers put together. They had to do it, but... And this was actually in the first Battlestar Galactica video I ever did on this channel, and one of the first videos I ever did on this channel, period. The model is fine. It seems a little small, but I think again we kind of get into that dimensional thing because it is kind of thick, like some flapjacks together. And it's not tiny. It's small plate. Now the Battlestar doubles as a battleship and carrier, kind of command ship. The original Basestar doubled very much as a carrier. It had battleship roles, but it was more of a mobile base. In fact, it carried 300 raiders, and the original Battlestar only carried a few dozen Vipers, under 100, I believe. So it carried a lot more. It also carried assault craft, although I don't know if we ever saw them on the screen, and it refueled and rearmed. It also had repair facilities for Centurions. For you, it's been a second. For me, it's been about an hour because a friend showed up. Sorry about that. Anyway, the Basestar was mostly a carrier command outpost. We didn't see a lot of guns on it. It had very long-range sensors, seemed to be pretty unmaneuverable, but again, it's a big chunk. It did have a couple of large pulsar cannon on the hubs. That seemed to be its primary offensive thing. I don't know. It was, very sci-fi in the original show, and we see it being used with kinetic weapons in the reimagined first Cylon War. And it was mostly there to carry, resupply, and act as a base, hence Basestar, for the Raiders. Like I said, we didn't get the transitionals or the other base stars, but pretty late in the collection we got the modern one. Now in the reimagined mini-series, they still call these base stars, but if you notice in the series proper, they start referring to these as base ships. Neither here nor there, whatever you need. Much like with the Raider, this is a pretty radical redesign, but we still have the two pieces together. Just instead of saucers, we've got these almost like Star Trek deltas. You can definitely see a relationship in theory, but it's very different. Now, this is even more of a carrier, whereas the original Basestar was probably more powerful than a Battlestar, maybe on par at most. This is weaker than a standard a Battlestar. Certainly something like Pegasus, even like Galactica. This is almost purely a carrier. It can dock as many as 864 raiders, but it seems like its standard complement is between 700 and 800. And that, of course, includes heavy raiders, standard raiders, maybe shuttles. It has lots of docking bursts, and it, too, is organic, so it can help heal and regenerate. It doesn't have kinetic guns. We do see it with missile turrets, though. That seems to be its only defense, plus its raiders itself. And since it is organic, it's not armored, so it takes damage relatively quickly, but again, it can heal. We see that in Season 4 especially. As far as this model, the TOS Basestar, I'm okay with. It's got a lot of plastic with the metal being in the middle. This one's the opposite though. This is almost entirely metal. All 6 spokes, hubs are metal. This is all metal. The only bit of plastic is some of this interior work kind of near the hub. It's got some plastic, but this is very heavy. Even though it's not especially that big and it's very spindly, it ends up being one that really impressed me. I think they did a very good job making this model at Eaglemoss. Now, I'm not saying what I think about the design itself necessarily as much as just I think they took what they had, what they needed to make, and they did as really as good of a job as they can. It's kind of a plain, but again, it's meant to be organic and match the others here. That's all we really got. I think, yeah, this one's nice. This one's as expected, but it's got some weight to it, but because of all the detailing, it's mostly plastic. This inner piece is metal. Plastic. Yeah. So I definitely like the reimagined Basestar or base ship more. And of course, in Season 4, it plays a much bigger role. The only gripe I might have, it would have been kind of neat if, and yes, I don't have it on the stand quite right, but it's fine, if it rotated. But Eaglemoss models aren't known for moving. That's just not what they do. But it would have been a neat feature if it did pivot. Oh well. These are static models. I can say the same thing about the Galactica and its flight pods. And of course, that's pretty much it except for our couple of specials, and these we looked at quite recently over Thanksgiving. Now, I don't collect figurines, Star Trek, or anything, but I figured these are okay since they're technically robots anyway, or death robots as I put in the first video. And so they kind of act as their own agency. You see these being used as pilots in the original Raiders, or even in the Heavy Raiders for the reimagined. But you also see them being used as infantry, cavalry, even tanks in a way, ground tanks. Of course, this is just the original version, which was a person in a suit. As I pointed out, he has his saber on the side. He's not articulated, but he does have a removable gun with bayonet. This one is also not articulated. It's the later style because it has the 5 fingers instead of the 4. These had integrated triple barrel guns and one in each arm. Kind of interesting. These are supposed to be about 6.5 foot tall. These are supposed to be about 7. This is actually on a slightly shorter plinth than this one's, a little more built up, so they end up kind of being the same height. But they're more or less to scale with each other. And I do think they're neat. You can definitely tell this was a real person and this was a CGI because of how spindly it is. And these are resin, but they say they're kind of a metallic resin, and when they're kind of sitting in a cool room, if you touch them, they do have a bit of a cool hue or undertone to them. I'm not sure. There might be some kind of something in the mix that they do to give them that metallic. They do have some weight, especially this guy. This guy is a little bit lightweight. He comes off his plinth too, if you want. I don't know. Like I said, these are specials. They also make a gold one of the original to give you a total of 3. And they also make Dog at the Daggett or Daggett the Doggett, whatever. The really annoying thing from the original one, which I will not be getting. But I figured, why not? They kind of make a nice little bookend for a Cylon shelf. Kind of neat. And these are the Cylons. But again, talked a lot about those in the Thanksgiving video, so just brought them out. Why not? So what do you think? This is kind of our lineup, our set of Cylon ships. And this will be all we get, because we know what issue 25 is going to be. Now, they might do some more specials. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are. But I think with production issues and everything else, they're just kind of cutting their losses. Plus, there's a new Battlestar coming out, I believe. Or at least there's talk of one. I don't know. A reboot of a reboot. So they might be wanting to clear way for that. But even though we've only have 25 plus the 3 specials and 4 if you want to count the annoying thing, they really have done some ships that no one else has. Other series have done the Galactica, the Viper, the Raider, but no one else has done the Heavy Raider or the Raptor or the Blood and Chrome ships. So yeah, this is part 1, looking at the first, 9 here. And the next 2 parts we'll look at 9 or 10 again, just to kind of talk about the series in retrospect. And this one was fun for me, the Battlestar Galactica series, because I got in more or less at the ground floor, at least in 2018. And it's been a lot. Yeah, it's neat. They're they don't come out frequently enough to really hurt your pocketbook every 2, 3, 4 months. And there have been very few misses or mistakes. For the most part, they've all been good to very good. Some of them even excellent, like the Pegasus. And while the Cylons aren't what most people are really, really wanting, you have to have them. I mean, and some of their stuff is pretty neat. So, I don't know. I just haven't done videos much lately for this channel. Wanted to do something. Christmas and all that. Hope everyone's enjoying the holiday season. As always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to the main channel, and from there you can take out the link to the Patreon page. All that good stuff. So as we end up 2021, we'll have to see what's new for 2022. This is Misha. Catch you very soon next time.